Everyone seems to say that gratitude is a superpower. It is supposed to ground ourselves in a world that is continuously changing in a very stressful way. But what if sometimes I just wake up in the morning and I can't seem to tap into this feeling of no matter how hard I try, I just don't feel good about where I am in life. I think the key is in reflecting on the toughest moments of our lives when we truly did not have enough. We're barely getting by financially, emotionally, even physically. Life and gratitude is about contrast. And that's why I want to share with you the toughest year of my life. I'm turning 36 today, and 2023 held a lot of painful events where I have never been so scared, helpless, and confused. It all started in San Francisco. This time last year, I was very different. I was running a sprint in order to get myself in shape for Coachella, which was the biggest festival that I have attended, together with Olivia, my wife, and Brian, my best friend. So it was a big deal, and it was an absolute blast. The desert just made me feel so alive, and even on the way up, we're on cloud 9. So you can imagine how crazy it felt the next morning when I saw Olivia crying in the kitchen, and I asked her, "What is wrong?" She replied, "It's my dad." Apparently was not feeling well, and he went to doctors, and they all came back. He basically lit up like a Christmas tree. The diagnosis eventually came back as stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Suddenly, our world was turned upside down. Her parents flew in from France, where they had retired to, into Houston, where her sister lives. It felt like a bomb shelter. And over the next 2.5 months, we did the best we can to spend time with family, while I was also holding down essentially 5 different businesses. It was the most stressful time of my life. And within a couple weeks, Olivia's father had passed away. We were not out of the woods yet because the stress that Olivia had been under really got her mental health to a very negative state. She has bipolar 1 and also a host of autoimmune diseases, which means that if her mind goes down, her body also goes down. That's a double whammy. This essentially caused her to have a psychotic break. She started getting suicidal thoughts. Never happened before. I will never forget the night that she ran away from home without any intentions to be found. And that kicked off the scariest night of my life, where I thought that I had lost the most important person to me. All the color had drained from my world in that moment. We had initiated a search, an entire search party. I was desperately biking through the river behind our house, calling her name, and I forced myself to keep it together because I knew if I fell apart, then I would be giving up. And around 8 a.m., I got a call from her mom, "Shang, come back, she is back." And I immediately went from the lowest point in my life to literally this astronomical feeling of relief. As soon as I got back to the house, I just collapsed in front of her in tears. That day, we admitted her to an inpatient mental health hospital. After 10 days, when her mental state had been stabilized, she had made significant progress and was very receptive to her medications, I went to go and pick her up. It's really hard to describe the feeling of having her even step back into our apartment and having her next to me. It was just such a comforting feeling. And a couple of weeks later, we flew back to the Bay Area, to San Francisco, from Houston to meet my parents for a cruise down to Mexico. It was the first time that we had gotten a chance to actually even get out of the pressure cooker environment. And that was when I realized, wow, things have actually really, changed. And we really wanted to get away from Houston a little bit, to have a little bit more distance for us to not necessarily forget the events that happened, but for us to actually to start healing. And after we got back to Houston in December, I hopped onto kayak, and this was when the weather was starting to get a bit cold, a bit chilly. I looked at all the flights that was available in South America that's pretty close to Texas, and El Salvador actually popped up as an affordable option. So we decided to take a dice roll and basically hop on a flight over to El Salvador for 2 weeks, leading up to Christmas. And at this point, it was very clear that I was burnt out. Crisis after crisis had definitely taken a toll on me. Got to a point where I felt so numb. I felt like I had lost the ability to connect genuinely with other people. And instead, it was replaced with this like heavy social anxiety where I couldn't even relax around good friends. After we got back from El Salvador, Olivia told me, hey, you should probably take some time for yourself. Take a true sabbatical. And at first I was like, okay, maybe 2 weeks. She said, no, 4 weeks, at least 3. And we decided on Taiwan for a variety of reasons, which I will actually get into in a future video. In mid-January, I did exactly that. See you later. Yeah, bye. Solo trip. Here we come. I actually did not plan anything out in advance. That was the point, which is to lean into the randomness of things and go off of how I felt rather than some pre-scheduled thing, which is my normal life actually, running sprints, going by calendar, everything's very, very structured. And being on this tiny island country in the Pacific was exactly what I needed. I stayed in hostels, so I met tons of people who rejuvenated my social engine. It taught me within a couple of days that, hey, without the specter of work and the stress of thinking about the future, I can actually be social and connect with people. Not only that, after the first week, I rented a scooter for the first time in my life, and I freaking scootered through a gorgeous national park that made me realize just how much I freaking love nature. I always knew this, but at some point it was really just buried underneath so much stuff, so much experiences and stress. I had become almost jaded towards travel. I really needed to actually step away from the environment and all the different expectations to truly actually recover. And that's exactly what happened. After Austin, I flew to Los Angeles first to meet a client, but also actually stay with one of my best friends, Moji, who is an ex-Olympian in powerlifting. And that was another transformational experience. Being around Moji is like being around a monk. I have never learned so much about flow, absolutely loving what you do day in, day out, as well as the importance of discipline. And then after Los Angeles, I was finally ready to go back to Texas, which brings us to the present day. Now that you have the context, let me share with you the main lessons. The first one is there's always a way to win. Irvin Buba, Olivia's dad, taught me this. If a man can die with a smile on his face and show that to live the remaining days of his life with grace, contentment, and love, then I think I can do the same and show up the same way to daily life. On my side, there were 2 mindsets that I held, one defensive, one offensive, that held me together and carried me through the most stressful period of last year. The defensive one is everything mentality. What it is allowing everything to happen to you, be it negative events, positive events, as well as all the different emotions that comes with them to wash over you. When you let everything happen to you, that's when you are truly able to begin to accept what is happening. But just playing defensive is not going to allow you to emerge onto the other side stronger. And this is where, on the offensive side, adopted Kobe Bryant's Mamba mentality, which is this mindset of doing whatever it takes to meet your objectives. In this case, it was being there for the family, shutting off my laptop at 5 p.m. sharp in order to spend the limited quality time that we had with dad. But also meant waking up at 5 a.m. running these very strict 2-week sprints in order to be on top of my shit week over week. A combination of everything and Mamba mentality is extremely effective. During this year, I also learned the power of true gratitude. That moment when Olivia was found again, I felt like we can overcome anything. This is the time to put on an abundance mindset where, hey, look, you could have lost that. I was looking at the river, at the trees, and I was just thinking, wow, they're so beautiful because she's in this world and I'm able to tell her about it. I'm able to share these things, and that I don't look at these things and I don't have to just cry out of sadness that because anything beautiful reminds me of her. So I'm just so happy, so glad, so overjoyed. And that's been true actually for our relationship, where before I might be getting annoyed at her messiness or being late and all this stuff. But these days I'm super chill. It's literally like we've been through the worst and this is like nothing. I also learned that life comes in seasons. Our lives also go through different cycles. When I was picking Olivia up at Houston Behavioral at the psych ward, the first leaves of autumn were starting to fall. I was already noticing certain changes in nature as well as the environment. And when Olivia's mom went back to France, I realized that the reason that we were in Texas in the first place was no longer there. This told me that our life season was beginning to change. It was time to venture out beyond survival mode and mindset and start perhaps exploring a little bit more. The problem is when we don't realize that our life seasons have changed. Then we allow the same mindset that helped us, or maybe it was detrimental to us in the last season, to actually pass into the current one, even though the circumstances have changed. It's the equivalent of wearing a winter coat in summer and being in shorts during winter. When I was in Taiwan, just living life and not opening up my laptop, so for 3 weeks is the longest time I've not been on my laptop, I was just using my phone for texting and Google Maps. So it was either like coordinating or navigating to a place to meet people. And during that time, I've never been so happy. All of the digital devices that we surround ourselves with, they really trap us. The reason why I got burned out wasn't just because of 2023, but it was because since the pandemic, so much of my social interactions have just been virtual and on Zoom. Being in Taiwan, it was like completely unplugged and real life, to the extent that one of my biggest takeaways is that the digital should facilitate the analog. Which brings me to my biggest Austin lesson, connecting for connection's sake. What that means is that we are social animals. And even though sometimes me as an introvert revert to, I wouldn't say antisocial, but kind of like moods where I just kind of down. I mean, that's how I started this video. But actually, I know that talking to somebody, saying hi, connecting with someone is actually going to make me feel better. I would literally go to my favorite cafe and just shoot the shit with the barista. And 9 times out of 10, that pulls me out of my funk and I'm ready to continue on. That's how powerful it is. Connecting for connection's sake mentality also frees us from this expectation. Even a brief random encounter must lead to something else. It doesn't have to. You're already getting what you want out of this interaction. And I think this brings me full circle. As humans, adaptability swings both ways. We get adjusted to both the bad, but also get used to the good. So this is where gratitude is extremely important because it helps us reset our baselines. And being here in Austin raised my standards to the extent where last year would have like made me so overjoyed, so appreciative, is now becoming more of like, oh, okay, I think that's normal. I'd rather not live that way. That's why I wanted to relive these experiences and these lessons together with you. Thanks for celebrating my 36th birthday with me. It means a lot to me to be able to share this with you. This was definitely one of the hardest videos that I've ever made. Not only was it crazy to map out, it was also very emotional for me to go through a lot of the events again. But I think that's why it's important to actually reflect on these experiences in order for them to actually have an impact on our daily lives. I think our natural inclination or tendencies is to actually forget and run away because the good times are here, so we might as well enjoy it. But life comes in waves, and not even just like macro seasons. I'm talking about just like daily life in general. Being able to tap into our lived experiences as well as the concrete lessons is a superpower beyond just gratitude. This is how reflection is learning and how learning is about improving our lives. That said, one of the things that I'm most grateful for is your guys' support over the years. This channel just hit 30,000 subscribers, which is insane to me that tens of thousands of you are tuning in from around the world and finding these words, these videos helpful. And your encouragement has truly kept me going through some of the toughest times, especially on this creator journey. And I'm really hopeful that I have many more years to be able to share these experiences with you. I always love to hear from you, whether it's in the comments below or if you sign up for my newsletter Epiphany, where I share a lot of these lessons more in real time rather than take months to make videos. I reply to every single email, by the way. You can catch me there as well. Call somebody up that you love and tell them that you are grateful for them today.